I also had a pre-recorded talk with Joe Trently, a Pittsburgh fan. I got another Newhouse sport guy that I went to school with. He has a lot to say about things going on. All right, and our next Beyond the Box Score call to the pen goes to a familiar face for me, one of my fellow Newhouse sports grads, a student back at Syracuse over the past year, Joe Trently. He's from the Harrisburg area in Pennsylvania, longtime Steelers fan. Joe, we got a lot to break down, more than just the Steelers, but I'll get to that. But Joe, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, Cole. It's good to see you again. Been talking, various group chats and stuff like that, and a little bit through text. But it's good to see your shining face again here on the show.
Joe, you have a pretty shining face yourself. So. But just to start this off, before we get into Pittsburgh and all that mess going on over there in Pittsburgh right now, there's big news that broke this past Saturday, and I just had one of my buddies on that's been a long-time Detroit fan, and the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff trade. Detroit and LA, that trade there. We talked about it a little before we got on here, but what are your initial thoughts on that trade, and how do you think each team kind of came out in the end of it?
I'm not sure how your friend feels, but I probably agree with what he said. I think the Lions hands down won that trade. The Rams gave up Jared Goff, 2 first-round picks, and a third-round pick for Matthew Stafford. And while I think that Matthew Stafford has been underrated his entire career because he's been with the Lions, not a very good franchise, and he'll have a better chance with the Rams, yes. But you're giving up 2 first-rounders, a third-rounder, and your franchise quarterback that you signed to that mega deal for a quarterback that hasn't proven himself in this league, like as far as like playoff experiences go and stuff like that, and a guy that's older than Jared Goff. So you're losing years. You're losing 2 first-round draft picks and a third-round draft pick. I just don't know, Cole. I think the Lions are licking their chops right now. I think they're thinking, okay, we got a younger quarterback. We can start over, rebuild a little bit with those 2 first-round picks. Even the third-round pick could come in handy. You never know. I think initially seeing that, I told you before we got on here, one of my good buddies that I went to undergrad with is a big Rams fan, and his reaction after it happened, he was not very happy. He said he wasn't a big Stafford guy to begin with, but giving up Goff, the 2 first-rounders and the third-rounder really set him over the edge, and I would be too. I think the Lions won this trade.
Okay, and I'm going to throw something at you because you talked about that the Lions won this trade because of all the draft picks and sending away an older quarterback. Let's look at it this way. There's draft picks are just draft picks. They're not proven yet.
Yep.
You bring in a guy that's 33 years old, I believe, in Matthew Stafford. He is older, but you look at a guy who's in the Super Bowl right now, who's 43 years old, in Tom Brady. You're telling me you can't get 3-4 good years out of Matt Stafford and make this a championship team? In my eyes, I think the Rams are making it a right now kind of thing, and they've shown that they go all in on someone. They went all in on Aaron Donald. They went all in on Jalen Ramsey. They're going to go all in on people. So to me, I understand what you say, but hey, they're going to win right now. Matthew Stafford is a good quarterback. He's just in a terrible place in Detroit.
Yeah, and you touched on it too. They're both organizations are in 2 different spots. The Rams have a great defense, as we saw, especially this postseason, and they have all the pieces there. Cooper Kupp, solid wide receiver. Robert Woods, solid wide receiver. Sean McVay's a young, energetic coach that a lot of guys want to come play for. And I think Matthew Stafford will flourish and do better in Los Angeles. I would at least hope so. And if I had to give the edge, over the last few years, with the exception of the Super Bowl run that the Rams made with Goff, Stafford is the better quarterback. I'm not debating that. And like you said, yes, I just think they're 2 different organizations in 2 different spots. And, when you say it like that, it makes sense for the Rams. But I just think they gave up a lot for him. And I understand they're in a win now mode. But Stafford's only going to get older. And unless he's, an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady or, a Drew Brees or something like that, Father Time does catch up, especially in this league of all leagues. It's the most physically demanding league in the world. And I don't know. We'll see how it works out. The both divisions are decently tough. I'd say the NFC West is tougher than the NFC North, but I think, when you put it that way, it's good for both teams. But I still think, at least for the future or as the future is concerned, I think the Lions still won this trade.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess we'll see. I mean, we have the next couple of years to see really who comes out on top in this trade. But with that being said, Joe, there's another team in this league that you've been a fan of for a long time. And it's a team that has over and over again, especially the last decade, kind of underperformed in terms of what they've had and the talent they've had. The Pittsburgh Steelers. And you look since 2011, Joe, they lost a wild card round. They missed the playoffs for 2 more years. They lost in the wild card, lost in the divisional, lost in the conference title game, lost in the divisional, and then they missed the playoffs 2 more years. And then this year, this team starts 0-11, Joe. I'm not 0-11, excuse me, 11-0. They start 11-0. They lose a 14-0 lead to the Washington football team, and then from there, it feels like it just went downhill from there. They lose the year out on a few losses, and then they get just completely smoked by Cleveland in the wild card round of the playoffs. From your perspective, how did that happen so abruptly in a downfall that could happen just that quickly? Where did you see it all go wrong? Was there a point in the season where you said, yeah, this is going downhill right now?
Where do I start? Oh boy. The problem is easily, and I think you can agree with this, Cole, not the defensive side of the ball. The defense can only do so much. And, if they give up around 30 for a game or something, you can't expect them to give, up less than 30 points every single game. So they'll have those games, but the problem is easily on the other side of the ball. The offense is not in good shape right now. The receivers, yes, the Steelers led the league in drops this year. I fully understand that, and you're paid to catch the football. That's what your job is. Drops are going to happen. It's part of the game. I still have faith in this receiving core because it's young, it's energetic, it's hungry. They come to work, they want to work. The problem I have is the offensive line, the quarterback, and the backfield. I've seen it year in and year out. I don't think James Conner's the solution. I like James Conner. Great story. Erie guy, Western PA guy, went to Pitt. Makes sense. Beats cancer. Great story. Great guy. Runs hard. It doesn't matter if it's Bobby Wagner in that hole. He's hitting it and lowering his shoulder and trying to win that battle. But he's injury prone. He's not the answer. The offensive line is just getting older and older and older as it goes. These aren't the prime days of the David DeCastros, of the Marquise Pounceys, of the Marcus Gilberts that were there back in the day. And Ramon Foster's gone. The prime days it's not the same offensive line that it once used to be. 5 years ago, we were talking, it was different. When they had the killer bees and they had that offensive line, why do you think Le'Veon Bell flourished in Pittsburgh? A great offensive line, and it fit his skill set because he's a very patient running back. And he waited for the holes to open, and that's why he flourished. But now it's just depleted. It's older. They got a lot of issues that they have to fix there. And the biggest one of them all, it all starts under center. It all starts with the quarterback. And Ben Roethlisberger, he's not getting any younger. And yeah, they started off 11-0, but he's not. I don't think he's not the answer. And my honest opinion, it would be great to see, Ben come back and go out on a winning season. Like, obviously it was a winning season, but at this point you got to start really, really the past few years, I have said they really have to start looking for a quarterback. Every Steelers fan has said it. Ben's getting older. Father time's ticking. Here it comes. You need a quarterback in the draft. And I'll be the first to admit it. I will be the first to admit it here on this show. I admitted it on the podcast that I have. I was ecstatic when they drafted Mason Rudolph. I'm thinking, okay, 6'4", 6'5" pocket passing QB out of the Big 12 at Oklahoma State. They drafted James Washington, his number one go-to guy there along with him. I'm thinking, okay, this kid can play. He has an offensive mindset. They score a lot of points in the Big 12. It's all offense. perfect. He will fit the Pittsburgh Steeler way. He can sit under Big Ben for a few years, and then it'll be his time. Well, we see how that turned out. So I don't know. There's just a lot of different things. They have 26 free agents this year. 26 free agents. Of those include Bud Dupree, Mike Hilton, Juju Smith-Schuster, Alejandro Villanueva, Tyson Alualu. The list goes on and on. A bunch of main players and a bunch of key players. Alualu is a guy that not a lot of people think about on that defensive line because they have Hayward and Tuitt, but he is the centerpiece at nose tackle for stopping the run and clogging the lanes. I like him a lot, but what are they going to do? They're around the cap hit right now. Art Rooney II came out and said that they cannot re-sign or they cannot bring Big Ben back with his current $41 million cap hit, and they would have to renegotiate his contract, which he did say that he is all open and willing to do, which tells me that he wants to come back for at least another year. And Cole, I don't know how I feel about that. Seeing him in that playoff game, in that disaster, in that debacle against Cleveland, I could just go on and on. I want to get you to get whatever questions or whatever other questions you have to ask, but I thought, that Cleveland game at the very end of the season, the regular season game at Cleveland, I'm thinking we are in great shape. Without Big Ben, without Pouncey, without Watt, without Hayward, sat four main guys. They stayed home in Pittsburgh because of the risk of COVID. They just wanted to keep them there to be safe. Mm-hmm. And the Steelers only lost that game by like 2 to 4 points, I think. I forget what the final score was. So I'm thinking, oh my Lord, we get those four guys back. We're going to move on to play Buffalo. Well, that was one of the most embarrassing games that I've ever watched as a Steelers fan.
Yeah, and you talk about how embarrassing that was and the way Big Ben played in that game and presented himself. You hope for more out of a veteran quarterback. And just the way that kind of all collapsed, not only in the entire game, but just in that first 8 minutes of the football game, the game is over.
Yeah.
How do you recover from that? And how does Steeler Nation, how does the Pittsburgh organization move forward with Ben Roethlisberger after that, knowing that as you said, if he does take a hit on his salary, if he doesn't, you look at the salaries next year, he is the highest paid quarterback in 2021.
Yep.
How can you justify what just happened on the field and having an 11-0 season, downfalling and losing a game like that, and then bringing him back out to be your starting quarterback? At some point, do you think my partner Connor Priester said, if you send Big Ben back out there to be a starting quarterback next year again, Mike Tomlin is eventually going to lose his job. What do you think about that?
Could ultimately be true. I mean, again, Mike Tomlin does have a say, but ultimately it comes down to ownership and it comes down to the GM, Kevin Colbert. You want to give your head coach a say as far as signings go, especially with big name players and especially your franchise quarterback over the last 15 plus seasons. But ultimately, that decision isn't really up to Mike Tomlin. Yes, Mike Tomlin makes the decision to start Ben, but look at their other options. I mean, yes, if you tell me, okay, Big Ben's coming back, he's the best option the Steelers have to throw out there on the roster, I'd agree with you. But if you're telling me that there aren't other options out there, or if they could possibly get a draft pick, a quarterback in there and maybe throw him in there 5 games into the season, if Ben's doing the same thing that he did, a lot of people will say, oh, Ben threw for 400 plus yards and 5 touchdowns in that Browns loss. Yeah, but he threw 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
I mean, those are things that people overlook. And
I think garbage time, right?
Yes.
All right, he got all that because Cleveland's up by 3 touchdowns. Yep. They're going to sit back.
They're going to sit back
and throw those 5-yard dump offs to Juju and stuff.
And I will say, I did have somewhat like a slither of hope, when he was throwing those touchdown passes. I'm like, all right, we're down 2 to 3 touchdowns now. It's still the third quarter. We have the momentum. There's possibly a chance. Then that last pick that last touchdown from Cleveland really did it in. And I'm like, yeah, they really need to reevaluate this offseason. Sit back and think, okay, we have a lot of rebuilding we have to do. And it's a huge cap hit. And you almost, you got to negotiate sides. Yes, he's been our franchise quarterback for all these years. And, we want to send him out the right way. But not everybody can win a Super Bowl, and head off into retirement. Not everybody's Peyton Manning. So, this team right now, the defense, I feel so bad for the defense. They didn't look great in that playoff game. But again, when your quarterback turns the ball over 4 times and you're constantly on the field, you're eventually going to get fatigued no matter how great of shape you're in. Yeah. If it ultimately came down to me right now, I'd just start. I wouldn't want to bring Big Ben back. I know that as a Steelers fan, saying that, people are going to say, well, how are you even a Steelers fan, for not wanting Ben Roethlisberger back? But seeing the decline, they were 11-0, as you mentioned earlier. How many people did you know? How many sports analysts did you know? How many personal people did you know were saying this is the worst 11-0 team in the history of the league that I've seen?
Many.
That was the only talk. It wasn't, oh, the Steelers are 11-0. They're the best team in the league, by far. No, it was, how is this team 11-0?
Yep.
That was the question. It wasn't, oh, well, the Steelers are the top of the league. There's no question. No, it's like, it's only a matter of time until the Bills or the Chiefs or the Ravens or whoever catches up. And sure enough, that Washington loss, then they go to Cincinnati, lose to the Bengals in Cincinnati. And that's really where I said to myself, okay, the only way I have some faith in this team is if they can beat Indianapolis, which they did. They came back, and I'm thinking, okay.
Yep.
And then the Cleveland game where they sat the starters and they still lost a close game, I'm like, all right, I'm feeling decent going into the playoffs. I'm not expecting a Super Bowl, but I'm expecting, a wild card win against Cleveland, coming back to Heinz Field, and then maybe a good game against Buffalo up at Orchard Park. But that debacle was embarrassing. It was embarrassing as a Steelers fan. It was just absolutely – the Cleveland was without their head coach. Crying out loud. When you're without your head – every sign, every storyline pointed to Pittsburgh moving on. And Cole, like you mentioned, since 2011, I was going to say, where do I start? Where do I start with the regular season? Do I start with the playoffs? Do I start with losing to the Patriots all these years in the AFC title game? Do I start with the debacle against Blake Bortles and the Jaguars throwing for about 98 total yards in that game and Leonard Fournette running all over Pittsburgh? Do I start with the Jesse James catch that wasn't a catch that broke my heart against the Patriots? Like, where do I begin? There's so many different places. As you mentioned, the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise is one of the marquee franchises in the NFL. Could arguably be the face of the league, along with the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers, and I guess now the New England Patriots. But Steeler Nation, in my opinion, is the widest fan base that there is. I think no matter where you go, if it's an away game, you see terrible towels everywhere. You see black and gold everywhere you go. There's no fan base like it. And it's a fan base that's frustrated, quite frankly. Very frustrated. And there's so many different questions that you can bring up. I know, we only have a certain amount of time on here and I could talk and rant about it forever. But, even the season prior, I was looking, with Duck Hodges at the helm when he took over, they were still in a playoff spot, or fighting for a playoff spot. They had to wait in that last game. And I remember the images at Heinz Field after their game. The Ravens were playing the Browns. And if the Browns won the game, the Steelers slid in over the Ravens. So everybody's cheering for the Browns. Baker's driving down the field, and then he threw the pick. And it was just like all the heart was sucked out of Steeler Nation. And that was 2 consecutive years not making the playoffs. But Mike Tomlin still led them to that record. See, it's so back and forth with Mike Tomlin. I love Mike Tomlin. I think he's a great head coach, but there are so many questions and so many questionable decisions that he makes where it's like, okay, is he really that great of a coach? I believe right now he's the second active winningest head coach
Sounds about right.
Behind Belichick, or if not, at least with the same franchise in the league. One of those two. But, I don't know. There's so many different places to go with this. It looks like they're going to sign Ben back, which then we're just going to have to sit back and hope for the best. The roller coaster ride that it is. And I don't know. I don't know what we're going to expect. If you look at their schedule next year, it is like a death sentence. It's brutal because they won the North. So they have to play every other divisional champion. They have to play at Arrowhead Stadium against the Chiefs. They have to go on the road to Lambeau Field to play the Green Bay Packers. They have to go to Orchard Park to play the Buffalo Bills. They have to go to Baltimore to play the Ravens, divisional game. They have to go to Cleveland, divisional game, to play the Browns. Those are just 5 road games on the top of my head that I can list. And they play the Tennessee Titans at home. And they go to Los Angeles to play the Chargers. Not an easy win, young, hungry team. I predicted my early prediction for next year. I predicted 7-9. That's if Ben comes back. I predicted 7-9.
Yep, and that's where I was going to go with next, Joe, is realistically, my question was realistically looking at next season, where are they going to be at if they stick with Ben Roethlisberger? You have all these teams in the league that are on the rise. There's a lot of teams that are making their way up, and there's a lot of other teams that are already established. The Pittsburgh Steelers feel like each year it's just a digression, and now you're like waiting. Is Ben going to be back? And if he is, it's just a waiting game. Seeing, hope and pray. You said it. You just hope and pray for the best. Even if it's not Ben, they just signed Dwayne Haskins. So I was going to ask you about that signing. So what is the realistic expectation for next season, real quick? What you think is going to happen?
I think they're going to go 7-9. Like I said, they won't make the playoffs, in my opinion. At this point, Cleveland's on the rise. Baltimore's been on the rise. They're not going to get out of that division. The only sliver of hope I have is the defense. The defense will be able to keep them in games. But again, Bud Dupree, free agent. Mike Hilton, guy I love Mike Hilton. Big Mike Hilton guy. Have always been a big Mike Hilton guy. He's great off the edge blitz as a slot corner. Great. Love Mike Hilton. He's a free agent. Tyson Alualu, as I already mentioned, a free agent. They got a lot of pieces that they got to worry about as well on the offensive side of the ball too. And Dwayne Haskins, that signing, I was really kind of confused and angry when it first happened. I'm like, why? What is the point? You're signing a guy that's basically equivalent to Mason Rudolph to be your backup quarterback. It's a 1-year contract. Why? Why add the extra cap? Well, I just didn't get it, Cole. I don't know. Maybe hope maybe it'll pan out. Maybe he'll come into the game for Ben one of those games and turn it on. I don't know, but I just didn't see a purpose. I didn't see a reason for it. Wait until the draft to go get a quarterback, or if you're not going to draft a quarterback, then Kevin Colbert, get on the phone and make some calls for a deal. There's a lot of quarterbacks on the move this season or this offseason, as we've already seen with Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson still waiting out what's going to happen with him. We don't know what's going to happen with Sam Darnold in New York. It looks like he might stay if the Jets don't go after Deshaun Watson. Kirk Cousins could possibly be on the move. There's so many different quarterbacks that you could go out and get that would be a better option at this point. It's just frustrating as a Steelers fan, because you look at these other teams around the league and you look at them and you're like, why can't we do that? On the offensive side of things, it's like, why can't we do that? Ben Roethlisberger, in my opinion, probably yours too, I think is a Hall of Famer. You look at the other Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the league right now. Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, NFC Championship game. And Drew Brees. You look at these guys. Phillip Rivers. Like, maybe. Yeah, I can agree with you there. That's iffy. But you look at those 3 that I listed, and it's like they're like the throws that they were still making. It's like, why can't the Steelers make it look that easy? Why is it that, I don't know. There's so many different things, so many different pieces to build off of and questions to look at. And it's a hungry organization as far as fans go, because they haven't won the Super Bowl since 2008, 2009. And you look at the teams that you've mentioned with the Killer Bees, that offense would put up 40 a game on anybody if they wanted to. The problem was the defensive side of the ball. Now it's the complete opposite. The defensive side of the ball is completely fine. The offense is a mess. It's a train wreck. I think the receiving core is fine. The offensive line, I think, is the top priority. If you're going to bring Ben back and you're sold on that, build the offensive line. That's what I want to see. You can live with James Conner or Benny Snell for a year or two. We understand that at this point, if they play like they did last year, they're going to go nowhere. So get some, use your draft picks and build a solid O-line, and then go from there and work your way back. Then fix the quarterback issue, fix the backfield, and hopefully go from there. The receivers are all young. Juju's a free agent. I don't know what's going to happen to him. In my opinion, you look at each receiver on that roster and they have something special about them. I think James Washington has the best hands on the team. I think Deontay Johnson's the best route runner and quickest guy. Claypool's your deep threat and your guy that's going to go up and win you 50-50 balls. But Juju is the glue. I think he is the receiver that makes that all come together, and he's your best overall receiver. I think he has all of those traits mixed in. I think he's a decent route runner. He has great hands. He can go up and win a 50-50 ball if need be. Not really known for that, but he has a lot. He has all the tools and he has the experience over those guys. So it all starts with him on the receiving core, but so many issues. The AFC's loaded, as you know. Looking at the playoff teams from this year, Buffalo's only going up. Kansas City's not going anywhere anytime soon. Baltimore is only going up. Cleveland's only going up. Tennessee's only going up. Indianapolis, in my opinion, is a quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl. That's just me. I think they are one of, if not the most balanced football team in the National Football League as far as offensive and defensive side of the football. AFC is loaded, and it's not looking good. The tough times are coming in Pittsburgh for Steeler Nation. It pains me to say it. I hope I'm wrong. And, I hope this video just gets posted and says, oh, well, he's wrong. All right, I'm glad. I will be glad to be wrong. But in my opinion, it's heading that way. And dark days are coming for Steeler Nation in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Joe, you'd love to be wrong. For once, you'd love to be like, hey, I was wrong.
Yeah.
But
but it's not looking like that.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I hope you've recovered from that loss to Cleveland a few weeks ago. I hope you can enjoy the Super Bowl this weekend. So before I let you go, one last quick question. This weekend, the Super Bowl, Brady versus Mahomes, Bucks versus Chiefs. Who do you got and why?
So Mitch and I just talked about this on our podcast yesterday, actually. We did a whole Super Bowl special, and we were talking about bets, all the different things that we can factor in. And I saw the over-under, I was thinking, this. And I actually contradicted myself when I gave my final score at the end. I said I'd take the over, but then my final score combined to the under. And I said, well, there are different ways this game can play out. One thing I can tell you is it's going to be a competitive game. It's going to be no blowout on either side. The Bucks defense is too good to let any kind of blowout happen. The Chiefs offense is arguably the greatest offense we've ever seen in our lifetimes. Pat Mahomes, I think, is the best quarterback in the league. Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, most experience of all time. This is his 10th Super Bowl, best game manager of all time. There's so many different things. The final score I came out to be, I have the Chiefs taking it 27-20 over the Bucks. I think it comes down to a defensive turnover. While the Bucks have the better defense, in my opinion, I think the Chiefs get a pick on Brady or a fumble recovery, possibly return it for 6. I think that could be the difference. That's what I told Mitch. And I also think a big key could be whichever team could establish the run game first and establish it well. I think whichever team can establish the run game has a better chance of winning the football game. We know both teams can throw. We know both teams have every weapon at the quarterback's disposal, whether it's Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Gronk, doesn't matter. They have so many weapons on both sides of the ball, or on both sides. And it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a good one. Let's just hope this isn't another Rams-Patriots Super Bowl that we saw from a few years ago. That's arguably the most boring Super Bowl I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. Let's hope for a good game. But I think Chiefs take it 27-20.
Okay. Well, at least we keep it close. I like that. Yeah. That's all I hope and pray for. Just a close, good football game, which it's going to be. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And the storyline, Mahomes and Brady for the second time, you can't get any better than that. I'm kind of upset with myself because halfway through the season, I said this very well could be when they played each other in week 12, I think it was. I was like, this could be a preview to the Super Bowl. And then I just completely flipped on that and decided to go with Green Bay and Buffalo. So I'm upset about that, but I'm glad this is the matchup. I'm really glad we're going to see this on Sunday, Joe. And I think it's going to be a close game, like you said.
I know. I saw the Bucks definitely had the tougher road to get here. They played Washington okay in the wild card weekend, okay, whatever. But then they went to New Orleans at the Big Easy to the team they lost to twice in the regular season and took down Drew Brees in possibly his last game. And then they went up to where I thought if there's one team in this league that's going to take down Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs, it was going to be Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
And I'm a big Aaron Rodgers guy. I thought Lambeau, frozen tundra in January, filled with snow, 9,000 fans in attendance. But who's on the other side of the ball? The man who's been there more times, the man who's played in the frozen tundra himself all these years in Foxborough, Tom Brady. And he did it again. And, you can argue whatever you want to argue with the calls, but regardless, at the end of the day, they scored more points than the Packers did, and Aaron Rodgers had his chances and didn't convert. So it should be a good one. I actually have a close friend who works for the Bucks. He's a video producer, and he'll be on the sidelines.
Okay.
So we'll
Nice.
see how that goes for him. But apparently, there's rain in the forecast, so we'll see how that goes. It should be a good Super Bowl. I'm hoping for a good Super Bowl. But again, I think Chiefs in a close one, 27-20. No blowout by any means. And if there's one key player I want to watch for that I've been watching all season long that I am the most impressed with out of any player in the NFL this season, Devin White. I want to see what he does for that Bucks defense. He's a ball hawk. He's around the football. He has a knack he's your typical linebacker. He wants to be around the football. He wants to be making tackles every play, whether it's a half tackle, whether it's getting a fumble recovery, whether it's a sack, whether it's a pick, doesn't matter. He is there, and I think he's been the most impressive player for the Bucks all season long, overall, throughout the entire team.
Yeah. Well, he came up with a big one last week on the Aaron Jones fumble that kind of flipped the game to a 17-point game right out of the half. So I agree with you there, Joe, and I thank you for coming on.
Yep.
Appreciate it a lot. My new house buddy coming on here talking the Steelers and some other things. But Joe, enjoy the Super Bowl on Sunday, and I will definitely be in touch with you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on. And as always, go Steeler Nation, even though they're not in it. But we'll see how it goes. Thanks for having me, Cole.
Yeah, of course.